I said, I think we should do like a great work. That's what I called it. In fact, it was called O Magnum Harum for a while. Start off at the beginning of the universe, what we did, and ended in heaven. And all the trials and tribulations that come in between, with a bit of sitar chucked in. Somebody had to do it, I suppose. You know, if it hadn't have been Procol Harum at that point, it would have been somebody, 4 weeks later.
Now, we can actually write music. And if we're going to write music, the model is classical music. And classical music has extended forms, sonatas, symphonies. So we're going to do structures and pieces that last a long time, that try and give us that credibility musically.
The Nice, originally P.P. Arnold's backing band, set the controls for the heart of classical music, jazz, and the modern stage musical on their maiden voyage into progressive rock. Frontman Keith Emerson was the Hendrix of the Hammond organ, making his instrument scream and sigh in dazzling displays of technical virtuosity and crazed physicality. Their first unlikely hit was a 7-minute version of Leonard Bernstein's America from West Side Story, transformed into an instrumental prog rock protest song. Progressive music didn't only come from the big cities. Welcome to Canterbury, the posh cathedral town that seeded those musicians who would in time grow into Soft Machine, Caravan, Hatfield and the North, and Matching Mole, all stemming from a little-known local group called the Wild Flowers.
The Wild Flowers didn't do loads of gigs. Probably only about one a fortnight, maybe one a week, because we weren't very popular. Those lads were very much into Thelonious Monk, John Coltrane, Dizzy Gillespie. We tried to do sort of danceable versions of that kind of music, you see, just to be different and awkward.
I like me, I like you, and the things that we do. Though my love love you too.
I don't like it if people think, that we thought that the sort of clever grammar schooly people came in and thought we were doing something better than just mere pop. We were awestruck by pop music, by the magnificence of the Beatles, of Motown, and really we just wanted to participate in it, but getting our little groups together, our own dialects of other stuff we picked up crept into what we did. I'm playing beat drums and I'm trying to sound like a rhythm and blues drummer, but I have been listening to all these sophisticated jazz drummers, and I was sort of cluttered with stuff. You can't pretend you haven't heard Elvin Jones if you have,
Soft Machine was the first band to emerge from the Wild Flowers. They headed for London's newly established underground clubs, playing with groups such as Arthur Brown and Pink Floyd at Middle Earth and UFO.
In that club, you got everything from vaudeville to rock to jazz to electronics to pure percussion to theatre to poetry to dance to naked people wandering around.
That was what we all gravitated towards, UFO and Middle Earth. That was the culture that defined us.
We're always sort of stoned people, listening to music played by stoned bands, and as long as everybody was stoned, everybody thought it was really good. We hadn't really got enough tunes to just do songs. So I thought, oh, I remember, what do you do about that? I know. What did jazz musicians do? They improvise. So you just pick a couple of chords in there and just keep going on them. And so tunes become 10-minute events. This is not because we've all become virtuosos, it's not in our case. It's because we haven't got enough tunes to stretch 1.5 hours. Organist Mike Ratledge was older than us, taller, and his father had been headmaster and who had an Oxford degree, so therefore assumed immediate seniority.
Well, there's the fuzz box, which sounds like this.
If once he puts his fuzz on, you had to keep playing. You couldn't take your hand off because it would start feeding back. So he developed a solo style of absolutely continual notes without a single break in. So we could do these sort of trance-like things without, you know, when you get some sound going on, ages and ages, without a single pause.
Just round the corner from UFO, the more established Marquee Club was already showcasing bands that would become the virtuoso kings of progressive rock, like Jethro Tull, and Yes, fronted by vocalist John Anderson.
I went to see Yes with 30 other people at the Marquee one night, and the guy next to me said, you know, they're looking for a drummer. And I met John, introduced myself. He said, oh yeah man, yeah, give us a call, come back next Tuesday, we'll give you an audition. And I never called, you know, and I often wonder if I'd have called, what would have happened to my life?
Life in Yes for jazz drummer Bill Bruford was like this.
The group started as a cover band, like most groups do. And you start playing Beatles tunes and a couple of tunes by The Fifth Dimension, and like you would. And then we got bored and we'd extend a section. So well, it's quite good up to here, but let's stick in another bit here where it goes like rhythm and blues. All right, you know, we stick that in. And then the thing would get longer and longer, until eventually somebody inevitably said, well, let's like make one up ourselves. John was a very keen listener, an absorber, a bit like blotting paper, you know, he absorbed music. And was mad keen on Sibelius and TV themes. He'd start singing things. He said, John, this is the theme to Bonanza. And he said, oh, never mind, stick it in, you know.
Yes never said no. They stitched movie soundtracks to folk music, to modern jazz, to classical music, to TV themes, pop music.
And the only people we didn't concern ourselves with, I think, at all was the audience.
Step out in the night when you're lonely, listening for the sound city ears don't hear.
If you couldn't make the London clubs, couldn't find progressive rock albums in the shops, and rarely heard it on the radio, you could, by the end of the 60s, see every band in one glorious drug and rain-drenched experience at a pop festival near you. This was the first golden age of the British Music Festival, a new community in which no one was more welcome than the progressive rock group.
Everybody had a festival that you went along and played, heard all different types of band, and people would listen to a jazz-orientated band, you know, a hard rock band, a sort of a dance-type band, and they would sit there and they'd listen to the lot.
Certainly, the outdoor live music experience was generally free.
It
always seemed like it was a sunny day. The weather was gorgeous, everybody was smiling and happy and all of that. It was a very sort of hippie thing.
It was really music. It really was music. It wasn't any other reason. Yeah, people got a bit smashed and, sort of bonked in the open air. That's just the road crew.
The quaint Suffolk seaside town of Aldborough, now home to Pete Sinfield, original lyricist for the intimidating new band he inadvertently named King Crimson.
I mean, we had an ethos in Crimson. I'm sure people at Gentle Giant and then other bands, we just refused to play anything that sounded anything like a Tin Pan Alley pop song. So if it sounded at all popular, it was out. So it had to be complicated. It had to be more expensive chords. It had to have strange influences. If it sounded like too simple, we would make it more complicated. We'd play it on 7/8 or 5/8 just to show off.
For the court of the Crimson.
Crimson's first big show-off opportunity came in July 1969 when they supported the Rolling Stones in Hyde Park, unleashing their unique, highly rehearsed sound on a totally unprepared audience.
They played Schizoid Man particularly well on that day. They really steamed. It was a monster. We played Mars or Schizoid Man or something were our heavier pieces, and there was a silence at the end, and nobody knew whether to clap or not. That was good. And then they would go. That was the sort of stuff we liked. We really liked shocking people.
Unbelievable. We were scared to death. Nobody knew that rock musicians could play like that. To execute rapid passages very deafeningly loud. Then exactly the same passage, everybody playing the unison thing, but very, very quiet. I mean, this was scary. This was the best group in the world.
Mike Giles one night was playing cymbals, playing Mothers in Birmingham. He ended up playing the cymbals like this. So there was no noise at all. And he just poised and didn't do anything. And we thought, wow, I was thinking... And Fripp panicked and took off his boot and started banging the stage with his boot because he couldn't stand the tension. The amount of ego and power and experience that went into that first album was extraordinary. Maybe that's inherent in that, and that strength was also the seeds of its destruction.
The shock and awe that both defined and deified King Crimson were completely absent from the whimsical, slightly stoned sounds still emanating from Canterbury. The remaining Wildflowers now took the road out of town as a band called Caravan.